The approaching shadow. The observation deck of Outpost Meridian hung in the silence of deep space, a small metal sanctuary orbiting the outer edge of human-controlled territory. Captain Marcus Thorne stood before the wide viewport, his reflection ghosting across the glass as he studied the starfield beyond. 43 years old, weathered by 2 decades of service, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen enough war to respect peace. "Coffee's getting cold. Marcus?" He turned to find Lieutenant Jade Winters approaching with 2 steaming cups. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, but a few strands had escaped, framing her sharp features. She'd been his tactical officer for 3 years now, and in that time something unspoken had grown between them, something neither had dared to name. "Thanks," he said, accepting the cup. Their fingers brushed, lingering a moment longer than necessary. Jade moved beside him, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of her soap. "You've been staring at those stars for 20 minutes. What do you see out there?" "Trouble," Marcus replied quietly. "The sensors picked up something 2 hours ago. Multiple contacts moving in formation." Her posture stiffened. "How many?" 300. "Maybe more." Jade's eyes widened. "That's an invasion force." "That's exactly what it is." Marcus took a slow sip of coffee, his gaze never leaving the stars. "They're being careful, keeping their energy signatures low. They think we haven't noticed them yet. The Zelthians? Who else would be arrogant enough?" He set down his cup and pulled up a holographic display. The star map bloomed between them, showing red dots creeping steadily toward human space. Admiral Krovar's fleet, if intelligence is correct. They've conquered 17 systems in the past decade. Jade studied the display, her tactical mind already working through scenarios. "We need to send a warning, get reinforcements." "No," Marcus interrupted gently. "We stay silent." She looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. "Silent? Marcus, they'll be here in less than 12 hours. We have 6 ships in this sector. 6. Silent Guardians. The command center of the human battleship Obsidian Dawn hummed with quiet efficiency. Marcus stood at the central console, surrounded by holographic displays that painted the void in blues and reds. Jade worked beside him, her fingers dancing across the interface as she coordinated fleet positions. "All ships are in position," she reported, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her shoulders. "The Zelthian fleet will reach visual range in 40 minutes. Marcus nodded, his eyes tracking the approaching armada. 300 warships, maybe more, their hulls gleaming with the confidence of countless victories. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of steel and arrogance sliding through the darkness. "Sir, they're hailing us again," came the voice of Communications Officer David Park from his station. "5th attempt. They're demanding we respond." "Let them demand," Marcus replied calmly. "Maintain silence." Jade glanced at him, worry flickering in her eyes. In the dim light of the command center, away from the crew's direct attention, she let her hand brush against his. "Are you sure about this?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment the weight of command lifted. "Trust me," he whispered. "Fear grows in silence. Let them imagine what we might be." A door hissed open, and Engineer Nora Bennett strode onto the bridge, her jumpsuit stained with grease, her short auburn hair wild from hours in the engine room. "Weapons are at full capacity, Captain. The new plasma cores are running better than projected. Whatever you're planning, we're ready." "Good work, Nora," Marcus said. "How are the shields?" "Like trying to crack a planet," she grinned fiercely. "Let them throw everything they have. We'll be standing when the dust clears." On the Zelthian flagship Divine Retribution, Admiral Krovar paced the command deck, his crystalline eyes narrowing with each step. His species stood tall and imposing, their skin shimmering with an iridescent quality that marked their noble bloodlines. Around him, officers worked with increasing nervousness. "Still nothing?" Krovar demanded, his voice sharp. Sub-Commander Wraith, younger than most officers present, shook his head. "No response to any hails, Admiral. The human vessels continue to hold position, but they haven't powered weapons or raised shields." "Cowards," Krovar spat. "They freeze with fear," but Wraith wasn't so certain. He'd been studying the human ships through their sensors, and something about them unsettled him. They weren't the crude vessels he'd expected. These were Predator-class warships, dark and sleek, built with a purpose that whispered of violence. From the shadows of the command deck, Velkor the priest emerged. Ancient and bent, his robes trailing behind him, He moved with the weight of centuries. "Admiral," he said, his voice like wind through dead leaves, "I sense something wrong in the stars today. The human silence is not fear, it is patience." "Keep your superstitions, old one," Krovar snapped. "I deal in weapons and conquest, not omens." Velkor's eyes, milky with age, fixed on the view screen where human ships waited like monuments to war. "Then you are blind, Admiral. And blindness in battle is death." Back on the Obsidian Dawn, Marcus felt Jade's presence beside him as the crew worked in choreographed silence. The moment stretched, intimate despite the surrounding personnel. She leaned close, her breath warm against his ear. "When this is over," she whispered, "we need to talk. About us." He turned his head slightly, their faces inches apart. "I know. I mean really talk, Marcus. No more dancing around it." A small smile touched his lips. "I promise." After we send these bastards running, the proximity alarm chimed softly. On the display, the Zelthian fleet had crossed into visual range. The view screen flickered to life, showing the assembled armada in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of ships, weapons bristling, shields beginning to glow with power. "They're impressive," Nora muttered from her station. "Too bad impressive doesn't win wars." Marcus straightened, his command presence settling over him like armor. "All ships maintain formation. Hold position. Do not power weapons until my direct order." Jade relayed the commands, her voice carrying across the fleet channels. 6 human warships, dark against the stars, stood motionless as the Zelthian armada approached. The contrast was stark. The aliens' vessels blazed with light and color, banners streaming in the solar wind while humanity's ships absorbed the starlight, silent and waiting. On the Zelthian flagship, Wraith watched the human formation with growing dread. "Admiral, they still haven't responded." "They haven't moved. They're just watching us." "Then they're fools," Krovar declared, but his voice carried less certainty now. "Prepare to—" "Admiral," interrupted the sensor officer, his voice trembling. "I'm reading power signatures from the human vessels. They're enormous. Far beyond what our intelligence predicted." Krovar's confidence wavered. "How enormous?" "Each ship is reading power levels equivalent to 3 of our battle cruisers. And their shields." The officer swallowed hard. "Sir, I've never seen shield density like this." Velkor's voice drifted through the sudden tension. "I told you, Admiral. The humans are not what you expected. They are not prey. They are— silence!" Krovar roared, but fear had entered his voice. He stared at the human ships, at their perfect formation, at their unnerving stillness. For the first time in his long career, doubt crept into his heart. Marcus felt Jade's hand find his in the shadows beside the command console. She squeezed once, a gesture of solidarity, of trust, of something deeper they'd both been too afraid to acknowledge until now. "Here they come," she whispered. The Zelthian fleet advanced, and the silence grew heavier, pressing down on both sides like the weight of destiny itself. In that moment, suspended between peace and war, Marcus knew that everything was about to change. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had become, and the lesson would be written in fire and steel. The price of arrogance. The Zelthian admiral's patience shattered like glass. "Send the final warning," Krovar commanded, his voice tight with frustration. "Tell them, if they do not respond, we will consider their silence an act of war." The message flashed across space, carried on frequencies that every vessel could read. The human ships received it. Marcus read the words on his display, translated automatically by the computer. It was full of threats, demands, and barely concealed fear masquerading as authority. "How do we respond, sir?" Park asked from communications. Marcus's answer was simple. "We don't." Jade pulled up tactical overlays, her mind racing through combat scenarios. "They're powering weapons, Marcus. Multiple ships charging particle beams. Let them," he said calmly. Then louder, "All ships prepare for incoming fire. Shields to maximum. Do not return fire without my direct authorization." From another station, Navigation Officer Timothy Ross reported, "Captain Sienna Cross on the Iron Resolve is requesting permission to move into advanced position." "Granted," Marcus said. "Tell Sienna to make them nervous." The Iron Resolve, a heavy battleship with armor plating that looked like layered obsidian, drifted forward from the human formation. It moved with deliberate slowness, a predator's approach, until it sat ahead of the others like a dare made manifest. On the Zelthian flagship, Wraith watched the human ship advance and felt his blood chill. "Admiral, one of their vessels is moving forward. It's challenging us." Krovar's face flushed with rage and humiliation. "Insolent." Weapons Officer Drin, fire a warning shot across their bow. "Show them what our power looks like." Drine, a young soldier barely into his second decade, hesitated. His fingers trembled over the controls. "Sir, what if they fire?" Krovar screamed. A brilliant beam of white energy lanced across the void, passing within meters of the Iron Resolve's hull. The shot was meant to intimidate, to force surrender. Instead, the human ship didn't even flinch. It hung in space, utterly still, as if the attack had been nothing more than starlight. On the Obsidian Dawn, Jade monitored the readings. No damage. They missed by design, trying to scare us. Marcus's jaw tightened. Big mistake. That was their warning shot. Now they get ours. He moved to Jade's station, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. In the reflection of the display, he could see her face, determined, beautiful, afraid but hiding it well. "After this," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear, "we take that vacation you've been talking about. Somewhere quiet." She glanced at him, surprise and hope flickering in her eyes. "You mean it?" "I mean it," he straightened. "But first, we teach these bastards what happens when they threaten humanity." Krovar, emboldened by the lack of response, made his fatal error. "All forward batteries, open fire! Target that impudent ship!" Dozens of Zelthian warships unleashed their weapons. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the fleets. The barrage was devastating, enough firepower to shatter a small moon. It streaked toward the Iron Resolve in a wave of destruction. On that ship, Captain Sienna Cross sat in her command chair, a woman who'd earned her reputation through blood and iron. Her crew tensed, but she smiled coldly. "Shields at 100%. Let's see what they've got." The weapons impacted. Light filled the void. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, and when the glare faded, the Iron Resolve sat unchanged. Its shields glowing faintly, its hull unmarked. Silence crashed over the Zelthian fleet like a physical force. "Impossible," Drin whispered, staring at his readouts. "Direct hits. Multiple direct hits. Their shields shouldn't have—" "Again!" Krovar roared, desperation creeping into his voice. "All weapons fire at will!" The Zelthian fleet lit up, hundreds of ships unleashing everything they had. The darkness became day, filled with streaks of energy and the fury of a species that had never known defeat. The human formation vanished behind the storm of fire. Marcus watched the tactical display as impacts registered across all 6 human vessels. Numbers scrolled past, power readings, shield integrity, damage reports. When the assault finally ceased, he checked the results. Shield strength across the fleet, 97%, Jade reported, her voice steady but carrying an edge of satisfaction. "No hull breaches, no casualties." "They gave us their best shot, Marcus. Then it's our turn." He activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Thorne. Target the cruiser on coordinates 774, Mark 33. Single shot, maximum yield. Fire on my mark." Nora's voice crackled through from engineering. "Plasma cores charged and ready, Captain." "Give them hell." Marcus looked at Jade one more time. In the chaos of the moment, with war breaking around them, he pulled her close and kissed her. It was brief, fierce, filled with everything they'd left unsaid for 3 years. When they parted, her eyes were wide. "I should have done that a long time ago," he said. She touched her lips, stunned. "Yeah, you should have. Fire," Marcus commanded. The Obsidian Dawn and 5 other human warships fired simultaneously. 6 beams of blue-white plasma, concentrated and terrible, converged on a single Zelthian cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared, held for a microsecond, then collapsed. The beams struck home. The cruiser didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive warship with hundreds of crew. The next, there was only empty space and a rapidly expanding cloud of ionized particles. On the Zelthian flagship, every officer stood frozen. Krovar's mouth opened and closed, no words coming. Wraith felt his legs weaken. Velcor bowed his head as if in prayer. Drin spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "They erased it. One shot, they just erased it." Marcus's voice cut through the Zelthian fleet's communication channels, the first words humanity had spoken to them. "That was a demonstration. The next volley targets your flagship. You have 30 seconds to withdraw." Krovar's pride warred with his survival instinct. Around him, his officers looked to him for leadership and found only a commander facing the unthinkable. The humans had spoken, and their words carried the weight of absolute power. Wraith moved to his admiral's side. "Sir, we must retreat. This battle is lost before it's truly begun." "No," Krovar growled. "No, we are the Zelthian Empire. We do not retreat from—" 20 seconds, Marcus's voice interrupted, calm and inexorable. Jade stood beside him now, her hand in his, both of them united in this moment that would reshape the galaxy. On the view screen, they watched the Zelthian fleet waver, hundreds of ships suspended in the moment between aggression and survival. 10 seconds, Marcus said. Krovar's hand hovered over the retreat signal. His empire's pride, his own reputation, everything he'd built, all of it balanced against the cold certainty that the humans would make good on their threat. 5 seconds. The choice was made. But not by Krovar, by the universe itself, which had just shown him that humanity was no longer prey. They were predators, and the hunt had only just begun. T-Shadows and Steel Krovar's hand slammed down on the battle protocols, not in retreat, but in desperate fury. "All ships, full assault!" "I will not be humiliated by these primitives." The decision sealed his fate. The Zelthian armada surged forward, hundreds of vessels abandoning formation in favor of an overwhelming swarm. They came like a metal tide, weapons blazing, shields interlocked, betting everything on the hope that sheer numbers would prevail where firepower had failed. "Here we go," Jade muttered, her fingers flying across the tactical display. "Marcus, they're committing everything. This is going to get bloody." "Then we end it quickly," he replied. "All ships, engage at will. Target priority, command vessels and heavy cruisers. Show them what precision looks like." The human fleet moved as one entity. Where the Zelthians charged in chaos, humanity responded with surgical efficiency. The Obsidian Dawn pivoted smoothly, its weapons systems tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Blue plasma beams lanced out, each shot calculated for maximum effect. A Zelthian destroyer exploded. Then another. A battlecruiser's shields collapsed, and follow-up shots tore through its hull like paper. Within 60 seconds, 15 enemy vessels were drifting wreckage or expanding debris clouds. On the Iron Resolve, Captain Sienna Cross prowled her bridge like a caged predator finally unleashed. "Navigation, bring us into the thick of them. Weapons, free fire on anything that gets close. Let's teach these idiots what a real warship looks like." Her ship dove into the Zelthian formation, and chaos erupted. Point defense systems came alive, shredding incoming missiles and fighter craft. Main cannons rotated smoothly, tracking and destroying targets with mechanical precision. The Iron Resolve carved through the enemy fleet like a blade through cloth, leaving devastation in its wake. Aboard the Zelthian flagship, panic had replaced arrogance. Officers shouted conflicting reports. Screens showed ship after ship vanishing from their tactical displays. The bridge trembled as nearby explosions sent shockwaves through space. "Admiral, we've lost 47 ships, Wraith reported, his voice cracking. "They're cutting through our formations like we're not even there." Krovar stood frozen, watching his grand fleet dissolve before his eyes. This wasn't how war worked. The stronger force, the larger numbers, should win. But the humans fought with a cold efficiency that made mockery of every military principle he'd learned. A massive impact rocked the flagship. Sparks flew from overhead conduits. An officer was thrown from his station, his body hitting the deck with a sickening crack. Direct hit on Section 7. Someone screamed. "Shields are down to 60%. Velcor moved through the chaos like a ghost, his ancient face serene despite the destruction. He placed a withered hand on Krovar's shoulder. "The universe corrects all arrogance, Admiral. Today it corrects ours." Another impact. The lights flickered. And then, through the viewport, Krovar saw something that shattered the last of his courage. The Obsidian Dawn was turning toward them, its weapons charging with visible energy that made the space around it shimmer with heat distortion. "Incoming. Transmission from the human flagship," communications reported. Weakly, Marcus's face appeared on the screen, calm and unmerciful. "Admiral Krovar, you chose this. Surrender now or your flagship is next." "Never." Krovar spat, but his voice was hollow. "We are—" A plasma beam struck the Divine Retribution's starboard side. The entire ship lurched. Secondary explosions rippled through the hull. Krovar was thrown from his feet. Around him, the command deck descended into bedlam. Shields at 15%, Wraith shouted. Hull breaches on 7 decks. Sir, we have to abandon. The second shot never came. Instead, a strange silence fell over the battlefield. The human ships ceased firing but held their positions, weapons still charged, still targeting. They were giving the Zelthians one final chance. On the Obsidian Dawn, Marcus and Jade watched the carnage they'd unleashed. The tactical display showed a Zelthian fleet in ruins, over 100 ships destroyed, dozens more crippled, and the survivors clustering around their dying flagship like frightened children. Should we finish them? Nora asked from engineering, her voice carrying no emotion. No, Marcus said quietly. We've made our point. Let them run. Let them tell everyone what they saw here today. Jade squeezed his hand, understanding the decision. Mercy, after demonstrating overwhelming power, would be more terrifying than annihilation. The galaxy would learn that humans could destroy, but chose restraint. That made them unpredictable, dangerous. A new voice cut through the communications channel, strained and defeated. Human fleet, this is Sub-Commander Wraith of the Zelthian Empire. Admiral Krovar is incapacitated. I am ordering our forces to stand down and withdraw. We surrender. Withdrawal accepted, Marcus replied. Collect your wounded and leave. And Wraith? Tell your people what happened here. Tell them all of it. As the Zelthian ships began their humiliating retreat, damaged vessels limping away into the darkness, a final transmission came through. A distress call from one of the crippled cruisers. Wounded aboard. Life support failing. Marcus looked at Jade. She nodded, understanding without words. Get Dr. Pierce on the line. We're rendering aid. Dr. Helena Pierce was already preparing when the call came through. A severe woman in her 50s, she'd spent 20 years in military medicine and had seen every kind of horror war could produce. But she'd never lost her compassion. We're bringing survivors aboard? She asked, already moving toward the medical bay. Enemy wounded, Marcus confirmed. Treat them as you would our own. Within the hour, the Obsidian Dawn's medical bay filled with Zelthian casualties. Among them was Ixora, a junior officer whose leg had been crushed in the explosion that crippled her ship. She'd expected to die in the cold of space, but instead found herself on a human vessel, staring up at a human doctor. Helena worked quickly, her hand steady as she stabilized Ixora's injuries. The alien woman watched in confusion, pain clouding her thoughts. Why? She managed to whisper in broken common tongue. We tried to kill you. Why save us? Helena paused, meeting those alien eyes. Because we're not monsters, sweetheart. War is war, but there's still honor and mercy. Ixora felt something break inside her, not physically, but something deeper. Everything her empire had taught her about humans being primitive, weak, barbaric, all lies. These were beings who could destroy with terrible efficiency, yet chose compassion when victory was won. Tears, iridescent and strange, rolled down her face. I will tell them, she said. I will tell everyone what I saw here, what you are. Tell them we want peace, Helena said softly, sealing the medical wrap around Ixora's leg. But tell them we're ready for war, and tell them we won't lose. Back on the bridge, as the last Zelthian ship vanished into the distance, Jade leaned her head against Marcus's shoulder. The command crew pretended not to notice, giving them this small moment of intimacy amidst the aftermath. Think they'll listen? She asked quietly. They'll be too terrified not to, Marcus replied. He turned his head, pressing a kiss to her hair. Come on, let's write the report. Then we take that vacation. She smiled against his shoulder. 2 weeks on Proxima Station, just us? Just us, he promised. The battle was over. The stars returned to silence. But across the void, messages were already racing toward 1,000 worlds. The news was simple, terrifying, and undeniable. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The new dawn 3 days after the battle, the Zelthian Empire's capital world received its surviving fleet. What had departed as a symbol of dominance returned as a warning written in twisted metal and shattered pride. The ships limped into orbit, broadcasting footage of what they'd witnessed. Human vessels moving like death incarnate. Precision and power united in terrible harmony. Wraith stood before the Grand Council, his uniform still stained with blood and carbon scoring. Behind him, holographic displays showed the battle in brutal detail. 300 ships reduced to fewer than 150 in under an hour. The council members, adorned in their ceremonial robes and ancient jewels, watched in stricken silence. "They gave us a chance to leave," Wraith said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "After demonstrating they could have annihilated us, they offered mercy. That, honored elders, is what we face. Not barbarians, not primitives, a species that knows when to strike and when to stay their hand." Elder Council Speaker Thysra, her scales dulled by 3 centuries of life, studied the images with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of lesser empires. "And Admiral Krovar?" "Dead," Wraith reported flatly. "He refused to abandon ship during the retreat. The flagship's reactor failed. 200 crew lost." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Krovar had been a hero, a symbol of Zelthian might. His death marked more than a military defeat. It was the death of an era. Ixora stepped forward then, leaning on a support crutch provided by the humans. Her testimony carried even greater weight. "They saved us," she said, her voice clear despite the pain medication. "After defeating us, they brought our wounded aboard their ships. Their doctor," her voice caught with emotion. "She treated me as she would her own." She called it honor, Thysra's ancient eyes fixed on the young soldier. "And what did you see in these humans, child?" "Beyond their weapons." "I saw the future," Ixora replied. "And we are not in it. Not as conquerors. If we're to survive, we must adapt." The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in living memory, the Zelthian Empire confronted a truth it had never imagined. They were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. Far from the council's chambers, in the depths of Zelthian space, other conversations unfolded. Military analysts pored over the battle data, searching desperately for weaknesses in human tactics. Scientists studied the energy signatures of human weapons, trying to understand technology that seemed decades beyond their own. Philosophers debated whether humanity represented evolution's next step or a cosmic mistake. But the conclusion was always the same. The humans had changed everything. Meanwhile, aboard the Obsidian Dawn, Marcus and Jade walked the observation deck, finally alone. The ship was in transit to Proxima Station, where they'd take their long-delayed leave. The crew had handled the transition smoothly, giving their captain the space he'd earned. "I keep thinking about something," Jade said, watching stars streak past in the subtle distortion of faster-than-light travel. "What if we'd lost? What if their numbers had been enough?" Marcus slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "We didn't lose, because we prepared, because we never assumed we were superior. That's what made us strong. We never stopped being afraid of what might beat us." She turned in his embrace, her hands resting on his chest. "Is that why you never said anything? About us, you were afraid?" He smiled, a rare expression that softened his usually stern features. "Terrified. Still am, actually, leading a fleet into battle. That's easy. Telling you I've been in love with you for 2 years? That's terrifying." Jade's breath caught. 2 years? "Give or take," he admitted. "Remember that incident on Titan Station? You stayed up for 36 hours straight to rewrite the defensive algorithms. I brought you coffee at hour 32, and you looked up at me with those exhausted eyes and smiled, and I just knew." "You're an idiot," she whispered, but she was smiling. "I've loved you since the day I transferred to your command. When you told the Admiral that you'd rather have me than a promotion to Fleet Command, I heard about it through the grapevine." "Well," Marcus murmured, lowering his head toward hers. "We've wasted enough time then." Their kiss was different from the one on the bridge, not stolen in the chaos of battle, but deliberate, tender, full of promise. When they finally parted, both were breathless. 2 weeks on Proxima Station," Jade said. "What are we going to do with all that time?" "I have a few ideas," Marcus replied with a grin that would have shocked his bridge crew. A soft chime interrupted them. Marcus sighed and tapped his comm badge. "Thorn here. Captain, priority transmission from Earth Command," Park's voice reported. "Ambassador Victor Stone is en route to the Zelthian capital. They're requesting you join the delegation as military advisor." Marcus and Jade exchanged glances. Their vacation would have to wait. "Again." "Acknowledged," Marcus said. "Plot a course to intercept the ambassador's ship." "We're on our way." When he closed the channel, Jade laughed softly. "We're never getting that vacation, are we?" "Eventually," he promised. "When the galaxy calms down, give it a decade or 2. The Obsidian Dawn changed course, heading toward a meeting that would reshape galactic politics. Ambassador Victor Stone, a man renowned for his diplomatic skills and iron will, sat in his quarters preparing for the negotiations ahead. He reviewed the battle footage for the 20th time, not to study military tactics but to understand the psychology of fear. The Zelthians had learned that humanity could destroy them. Now he had to teach them that humanity preferred cooperation. It was a delicate balance. Maintain the fear while offering the hope of partnership. Too much threat, and they'd unite against humanity in desperation. Too much conciliation, and they'd think the victory was a fluke. When the Obsidian Dawn rendezvoused with his vessel, Victor requested an immediate meeting with Captain Thorne. The two men sat across from each other in the ambassador's conference room, mutual respect evident in their bearing. "I need you to understand something, Captain," Victor said. "What you did out there was perfect. Overwhelming force followed by mercy. It's made my job either much easier or impossible. I won't know which until we arrive." Marcus nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Stand behind me during the negotiations. Say nothing unless I prompt you. But let them see the man who shattered their fleet offering a handshake instead of a fist. Let them understand that we choose peace not from weakness, but from strength." "I can do that," Marcus agreed. "But Victor? If things go wrong, if they try something, then you do what you do best," the ambassador finished. "You protect humanity, but let's hope it doesn't come to that." The negotiations on the Zelthian homeworld took place in the ancient Hall of Accord, a massive chamber carved from a single crystal formation that refracted light into 1,000 dancing rainbows. Speaker Thisra sat at the head of the council table, her retinue arrayed behind her. Across from her, Victor Stone stood with Marcus and Jade flanking him. "We acknowledge our defeat," Thisra began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries, "and we recognize that humanity has proven itself capable of great destruction. The question before us now is, what do you want?" Victor smiled, a politician's expression that revealed nothing. "We want what we've always wanted, Speaker. Trade, technology exchange, cultural understanding, and mutual defense. We don't seek to rule you. We seek to stand beside you." "Pretty words," Thisra replied, "but words cost nothing. Why should we believe you?" Marcus stepped forward then at Victor's subtle gesture. "Because we could have killed every single one of your soldiers. We could have destroyed your fleet entirely. Instead, we brought your wounded aboard our ships and healed them." He gestured to where Ixora stood among the Zelthian observers. "Ask her what she saw in our medical bay." Ixora limped forward, her voice steady. "I saw compassion. I saw doctors working to save enemy lives with the same intensity they'd use for their own. I saw strength tempered by mercy." She looked directly at Thisra. "Elder Speaker, these humans are not like any species we've encountered. They don't need to conquer us. They're already beyond us, and they're offering partnership anyway." The negotiations continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. By the time the twin suns of the Zelthian homeworld set in spectacular display, humanity had gained its first major alien ally. Trade agreements were signed, military cooperation protocols established, and most importantly, a message had been sent to every species watching from the shadows. Humanity was not interested in empire, but neither would it tolerate aggression. That evening, Marcus and Jade finally stole away to a balcony overlooking the Zelthian capital. The alien city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like terrestrial stars. Above, 3 moons hung in the lavender sky. "We did it," Jade said softly. "Changed the galaxy in less than a week. Scared the hell out of it anyway," Marcus replied. He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in his familiar scent. "After this, after all the diplomatic nonsense is done, 2 weeks on Proxima Station," Marcus interrupted. "I promise, nothing will stop us this time. You better mean that, Captain, because I'm holding you to it." They stood there in the alien twilight, 2 humans who had reshaped the course of galactic history, stealing a moment of peace before the next crisis emerged. Because they both knew the truth, this was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, messages spread like wildfire. The humans had arrived. They had proven their strength. And more terrifyingly, they had proven their restraint. Every species now faced the same questions. Were humans allies or threats? Protectors or predators? Partners or future conquerors? The answers would unfold over decades as humanity expanded further into the stars. But on that night, under alien moons, Marcus and Jade didn't worry about the future. They had each other, they had peace, and for now, that was enough. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not unprepared. Humanity was a force that chose its battles carefully, struck with overwhelming precision, and knew when mercy served better than destruction. And as the stars wheeled overhead, ancient and indifferent to the dramas played out beneath them, one truth crystallized: the age of human expansion had begun. Not with conquest, but with a demonstration of power so complete that war became unnecessary. The day the aliens met human warships would be remembered for millennia. Not as a battle, but as the moment the galaxy understood that a new apex predator had emerged. One that preferred peace, but was prepared for anything. And in the silence of space, where humanity's warships patrolled newly established borders, that message was clear. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had changed it with steel, silence, and the wisdom to know that true strength lay not in constant aggression, but in the terrible certainty of what would happen if that strength was finally unleashed.